The NBA is about to begin the 2023/24 season, and we have seen 76 years of incredible basketball. The NBA has featured an 82-game regular season for decades, and it's time to shine a light on what the players accomplished in the regular season. And that is what this list is focusing on. I am not including their postseason play at all. That will not be a factor in the rankings of the players. Before we get started, I will briefly discuss the criteria of this list. We want to look at the numbers they recorded, the accolades they obtained, the type of success their team had, and notable records they were able to break. It's also important to remember the context of each season. Depending on the era they played in, some players were able to record incredible numbers that others could never do. I'm also only including players that played over 60% of the games, with only one exception that you'll see later in this video. As far as the person making the list, I'm an author of 2 NBA books. In my latest book that I released in 2023, I ranked the top 300 regular seasons by a player. It took me a lot of time to complete the book, but I had so much fun researching all of these seasons. So without further ado, I present to you the top 100 list. Number 100, we have Dirk Nowitzki in 2007. His case for being here is pretty simple. He was the best player for a team that won 67 games. They are one of 13 teams that posted 67 wins. However, the Mavericks are the only team that didn't have at least 2 Hall of Fame players on the roster. That is pretty impressive. It also helps that he averaged over 50% from the field, 40% from the 3, and 90% from the free throw line. He's in the 50-40-90 club that all the great shooters are a part of. And for the icing on the cake, he posted the 39th highest win chart per 48 minutes for a single season. Number 99, we have Karl Malone in 1998. This was almost a repeat of his 1997 MVP season. The numbers were a tad worse, but the circumstances make it more impressive. The ultra-reliable John Stockton missed 18 games and was on a minute restriction throughout the season. However, Malone stepped his game up. In fact, he led the league in win shares, offensive win shares, value over replacement player rating, and offensive box plus minus. The numbers indicate that he was the most valuable player for the 62-win Utah Jazz. Number 98, we have Magic Johnson in 1986. For the second year in a row, he led the Lakers to 62 victories and to the number 1 offensive rating in the league. That's what happens when you have the greatest point guard at the peak of his powers. In fact, he recorded the 10th highest assists per game average for a single season. For the 72 games that he played, the Lakers never lost in consecutive games. There's no question that he would have had much more recognition from this dominant season if it wasn't for Larry Bird going GOAT mode. Number 97, we have LeBron James in 2017. He was the glue that saved this team from having a disaster of a year. We have the simple fact that the Cavs lost all 8 games that he was absent. They lost by an average margin of 16 points per game. Injuries played a large part in their underwhelming season, which is why LeBron had to cover so many roles in order for this team to stay afloat. Thankfully for them, this is what he does best. He had an outstanding all-around season. He had 13 triple-doubles, which is tied for the second most in his career. Number 96, we have Shaquille O'Neal in 2002. He was playing through injuries all season long and was trying to work his way through health. But as long as he was 75% healthy, there was still nothing anyone can do to stop him. Most importantly, the value that he brought to this soon-to-be dynasty is what caught my eye the most. The Lakers had a 6-9 record during his absence, and they had a 77 win percentage when he was on the floor. That's about a 63 win season if he would have been fully healthy. Number 95, we have Kobe Bryant in 2008. His numbers went down for the previous 2 seasons, but he was playing a brand of basketball that pushed the Lakers into being title contenders. The addition of Pau Gasol certainly helped with that, but check out how the Lakers were performing before he arrived. At the halfway point of the season, the Lakers were only 2 games behind the number 1 seed in the West. But let's not act like his numbers weren't impressive. He averaged over 28 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists, while being selected to the All-NBA First Team Defense. Number 94, we have Oscar Robertson in 1966. From a historical standpoint, This is only the third time that a player has averaged over 31 points and 11 assists. To have an idea of how unstoppable he was, there was a game against the Knicks when he had 44 points on 73% shooting, 22 assists, and 8 rebounds. This is only the third time that a player has posted over 40 points and 20 assists. But would have been a career year for anyone else, which is a standard year for the Big O. Number 93, we have Nikola Jokic in 2021. If you're an analytical nerd, then this season should satisfy all your data-driven needs. He finished with the 5th highest box plus minus, the 7th highest offensive box plus minus, and the 12th highest PER for a single season. But it was his efficiency that caught my eye the most. He is only one of 8 players to post a 64 true shooting percentage while averaging over 25 points. That, along with his extraordinary all-around play, pushed the Nuggets to the 3rd best record in the West, even with all the injuries they had. Number 92, we have Wilt Chamberlain in 1960. He became the first rookie to win the MVP. He was embarrassing the competition in just his first season. He still has the 2nd highest rebounds per game and the 5th highest points per game average ever. He was hitting numbers that people didn't think were humanly possible to reach at a professional level. But Wilt exposed the league. Even against Bill Russell, he scored over 40 points 7 times, which included a 53-point performance. If he was putting up numbers like that against him, imagine what he was doing to the rest of the league. Number 91, we have Kawhi Leonard in 2017. In the Spurs' first year after Tim Duncan's retirement, Kawhi led San Antonio to one of their greatest seasons in franchise history without another all-star teammate. They kept their dominant ways thanks to his two-way greatness. He led the Spurs to the best defensive rating in the league, and he was now the focal point of the offense. He was also their only 20 points per game scorer while playing extremely well in the clutch. Number 90, we have Charles Barkley in 1993. This wasn't his best statistical season, but this is where he proved that he could be the best player on a truly dominant team. He should get credit for fitting in so seamlessly with the identity of this team. He did an exceptional job of getting others involved and knowing when to take over games. In the end, he had one of the greatest all-around seasons by a big man. He is currently only the 5th power forward/center to average over 25 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists. Wilt Chamberlain, Kareem, Giannis, and Nikola Jokic are the only other big men to accomplish this. Number 89, we have Karl Malone in 1997. By all accounts, this is the year where he impacted the Utah Jazz the most. He led his team to a franchise-best 64 wins. They also had a margin of victory of 8.79, which is currently the 26th highest for a single season. This was a historically dominant team, thanks to the mailman. And after the All-Star break, the Jazz went 31-4, which included a 15-game winning streak. His consistent play is what tricked the voters into selecting him over Michael Jordan. Number 88, we have LeBron James in 2011. In his first year with the Miami Heat, they fell extremely short of expectations. That's why he wasn't considered the league's most valuable player, but he was still the best player in the world, in the regular season only. For the season, he finished with the highest win shares, offensive win shares per 48 minutes, value over replacement player rating, box plus minus, and PER in the NBA. He also finished 2nd in scoring. The numbers and eye test force us to respect this polarizing season. Number 87, we have Magic Johnson in 1985. This was the year when he was dubbed as the MVP, Most Valuable Passer. That's a title that should belong to him forever. For example, the 85 Lakers still hold the record for the highest field goal percentage shot as a team with 54.5%. There is no question that the reason why they were so efficient was that Magic was putting his teammates in the best position to score. And of course, they held the best offensive rating in the league. I believe this is the most underrated team in history, and he was the reason behind their greatness. Number 86, we have Kobe Bryant in 2009. This was a season when he proved he could be the best player of a historically dominant team. This is only one of 21 teams to win over 65 games. He figured out how to make the most of all the pieces that he was surrounded with, and they had enormous success. He was more cerebral with the way he attacked. He picked his spots more effectively, and that allowed him to have one of his most efficient scoring seasons. But once the fourth quarter began, that's when the Black Mamba would emerge and he would go for the kill. Number 85, we have Larry Bird in 1984. There was no one that was more versatile during this time. He had the ability to play all 5 positions at the highest level. He was the best outside shooter. He had the best court vision behind Magic Johnson, and he was rebounding better than 70% of the starting centers. On top of all that, he led the league in defensive win shares. Although he wasn't a great one-on-one defender, he found different ways to create impact on that end of the floor. Number 84, we have Moses Malone in 1983. Although the Sixers were already a great team without him, he should get all the credit in the world for adapting to his new situation so quickly. He proved that he could make the quick outlet pass that triggered the Sixers' running game. He could also get out and run the break himself. He could protect the paint with his underrated shot blocking ability. And of course, he continued dominating the glass by leading the league in rebounds. He was a big reason why the Sixers had one of the best fast break offenses in the NBA. Number 83, we have Bill Russell in 1962. He was the best player for a team that won over 60 games for the first time in NBA history. They also had a 9.24 margin of victory, which is currently the 18th highest mark ever. Nobody was safe from getting demolished by this all-time great team. Although the Celtics had so much talent, it was Russell's defense that separated them from the rest of the league. For instance, they didn't have a single player that was a top 10 scorer. However, they were the best defensive team. This was all thanks to the Ringmaster. In fact, he has the 4th highest defensive win shares of all time. Number 82, we have Oscar Robertson in 1965. There's no other player that can compare to everything he did for his team on offense. He's in his own category. He's the only player to average over 30 points, 11 assists, and 9 rebounds for a season. This was also the 4th time in 5 years that he led the league in assists. Unsurprisingly, the Royals had the best offense in the NBA, as they finished first in scoring and offensive rating. Number 81, we have Jerry West in 1965. After a disappointing season the previous year due to Elgin Baylor's injury problems, Jerry West led the Lakers to the 2nd best record. He had a complete offensive game. He created so many problems for other teams thanks to his quickness and accuracy from long-range jumpers. It's all in the numbers. Only the most elite players can average 31 points, 6 rebounds, and 5 assists for a season, and Jerry West came pretty close to reaching those numbers. Number 80, we have LeBron James in 2006. From a historical standpoint, he produced the 19th highest value over replacement player rating, and he's in the top 35 for the most points scored in a single season. Additionally, he's only one of 4 players to have averaged at least 30 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. Those players are Michael Jordan, Oscar Robertson, Jerry West, and Russell Westbrook. In only his 3rd season, he was already playing at a historical level. Number 79, we have Shaquille O'Neal in 2001. The per game numbers that he posted are almost identical to his 2000 MVP season. On the offensive side of things, he was the same beast. The biggest difference is that he wasn't exerting the same attention and energy on defense. That's why this doesn't compare to what he accomplished in the prior year. Despite all that, he led the league in win shares and PER. There is still no one that was at his level. Number 78, we have David Robinson in 1991. During a time when Michael Jordan and Magic Johnson were in the league, the coach for the Phoenix Suns called David Robinson the greatest impact player since Kareem. That's not a bad comparison, since he became only the 3rd player to average over 25 points, 13 rebounds, and 3.5 blocks. That short list includes Kareem. Number 77, we have Karl Malone in 1990. This gets my vote for Malone's greatest season of his career. He recorded a career high in points, and this is the only time that he averaged over 30 points. He is currently one of 13 players to score over 2,500 points in a season. On top of that, he has the 4th most efficient season from a player that averaged over 30 points. He, Adrian Dantley, and Kareem are the only players to shoot over 55% from the field while averaging over 30 points. Number 76, we have LeBron James in 2016. He was impressive in the way he stepped up with Kyrie Irving missing 29 games and then using the season to play his way back to shape. Despite the team being shorthanded, he carried the team to the third best offensive rating in the NBA. He did just enough to keep the Cavaliers afloat while also pacing himself for something greater in the playoffs. Number 75, we have Moses Malone in 1982. He was as dominant as any big man that you can think of. He is the only player since the NBA/ABA merger to average over 30 points and 14 rebounds. His dominant play is the only reason why the Houston Rockets were tied for the fourth best record in the West. The ultimate stat that proves how valuable he was to his team came when they traded him away to the Sixers in the offseason. With him gone, they only won 14 games. He deserves so much credit for how he made this team look so competent. Number 74, we have Joel Embiid in 2023. His numbers were simply staggering. He won the scoring title and he posted the 13th highest PER for a single season. This is also only the 13th time that players averaged over 33 points and 10 rebounds. He's in the same company as Wilt, Kareem, Elgin Baylor, and Bob McAdoo. Keep in mind that all of those players reached those numbers before the start of the merger. He currently has the highest points per game average by any center in the modern NBA. Number 73, we have Allen Iverson in 2001. What made this season so impressive is he took that Sixers team to the second best record in the league. They improved by 7 games, and they went from having the 5th lowest offensive rating to the 13th best offensive rating. Although they were a great defensive team, their offense depended solely on the answer. As far as the numbers, he's only the second player to lead the league in points and steals. The other player to accomplish this is Michael Jordan. At 6 feet and 165 pounds, he became the shortest and lightest player to win the MVP in a league dominated by big men. Number 72, we have Magic Johnson in 1991. This was a season where Magic Johnson proved that he was much more than a system player. In their first year without Pat Riley, the Lakers under Mike Dunleavy played a half-court offense and they had the 3rd slowest pace. Even then, the Lakers had the 5th best offensive rating and Magic ended up recording the 13th highest assists per game average ever. He proved that he could dominate no matter what system he was playing or who his teammates were. Number 71, we have Michael Jordan in 1998. More than any other season of his career, he demonstrated that he can carry a team to a dominant year without much talent around him. Without Scottie Pippen playing for the first 35 games, the Bulls went 24-11. Let's keep in mind that Jordan was the only Bulls player to be selected as an All-Star. So without any All-Star teammates, Chicago was a top 3 team in the league. He was able to accomplish this by doing what he does best, and that's scoring the ball. He became the oldest player to ever win the scoring title. Number 70, we have Steph Curry in 2015. His spot here has more to do with his historical accomplishment. He was the leader of one of the most dominant teams in NBA history and the creator of the three-point era of the NBA. The Warriors had a margin of victory of 10.1 points, which is the 11th highest mark ever. In other words, it was a normal night when they beat their opponents by double digits. The teams didn't know how to defend the next evolution of the game. 8 years later, and everyone is still trying to emulate this legendary season by Curry. But no one can beat the original. Number 69, we have James Harden in 2017. In the previous year, the Rockets had a 41-41 record. They gave up Dwight Howard and replaced him with a bunch of role players. However, the Beard led this team to 14 more victories and they finished second in points and offensive rating. This was all thanks to Harden's extraordinary playmaking abilities. In fact, he's only the second player to average at least 29 points, 11 assists, and 8 rebounds. He was also very close to being the second player to finish first in points and assists in the season. Number 68, we have Larry Bird in 1987. This was the first year where he averaged a 50-40-90 shooting split. He shot with tremendous efficiency while averaging over 28 points. What makes it even more impressive is that he led the league in minutes played after 3 straight seasons of playing in the finals. He had a larger workload because of all the injuries the Celtics were going through. They were able to continue their dominant ways by finishing with the second best record. This was thanks to the greatness of the duo of Bird and McHale. Number 67, we have Rick Barry in 1975. Here's how we know this season was legendary. This is only the 7th time that a player has averaged over 30 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, and 2 steals. That includes Steph Curry's 2016 season, Dwayne Wade's 2009 season, James Harden's 2019 season, and 3 of Michael Jordan's seasons. Only the best of the best have been this dominant on both ends of the floor. He was the best outside shooter, the best passing forward, and the leader of a soon-to-be championship team that didn't have a single player that averaged over 15 points. Number 66, we have Jerry West in 1970. This super team ended up being a one-man show. Wilt Chamberlain missed 70 games, and Elgin Baylor missed 26 games. He carried this team on both ends of the floor. The Lakers were able to finish with the 5th best record. For many people, this is his greatest season. The numbers also make the case for him. He is only the 9th player to average over 31 points and 7 assists. This was his best opportunity to win his first MVP award, but he was snubbed big time when the players voted for Willis Reed. Number 65, we have Kobe Bryant in 2003. This season is mostly famous for his legendary streak where he scored over 40 points in 9 straight games. It's an accomplishment that only Wilt and Michael Jordan have been able to reach. He also scored 35 or more points in 13 straight games, a run eclipsed only by Chamberlain. Aside from his legendary scoring abilities, he also had one of the greatest all-around seasons from a volume scorer. He is currently one of 3 players to average over 30 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals in a season. That certainly played a huge part in the Lakers winning 50 games after a very slow start. Number 64, we have Tim Duncan in 2003. Although his per game numbers don't exactly pop off the screen, he did lead the Spurs to 60 wins. This was a notable accomplishment considering the type of talent that was on the team. David Robinson was in his final year, Tony Parker was in his 2nd year, and Manu Ginobili was only a rookie. This team's dominance started and ended with the greatness of Duncan. What made him so special wasn't his statistical dominance, but is that he mastered the intangibles of the game that meant the difference between winning and losing. He displayed the perfect balance of making his teammates better and taking over when needed. Number 63, we have Dirk Nowitzki in 2006. From a statistical standpoint, this was the best season of his legendary career. He recorded career highs in points, win shares, offensive win shares, value over replacement player rating, offensive box plus minus, and PER. The numbers in the eyes tell us that he was extremely valuable to a team that won 60 games. What makes it even more impressive is that 6 of their best players missed a total of 155 games. Even though they were shorthanded, they finished with the 2nd best record and the highest offensive rating in the league. That is solely thanks to Dirk. Number 62, we have Charles Barkley in 1990. This season is mostly famous for the controversial MVP snub that he experienced. He had the most first place votes, but he lost to Magic Johnson, who had more total MVP points. Although he missed out on such an important accolade, it doesn't take away from the type of season that he had. With all the new pieces that the Sixers added, he opted to shoot less, but he was extremely efficient. In fact, he is currently one of 3 players to average over 25 points while shooting over 60%. He also recorded the 5th highest true shooting percentage by any player to average over 20 points. Number 61, we have Giannis Antetokounmpo in 2019. He was the best player on a historically dominant team and the best defender on the best defense in the NBA. The Milwaukee Bucks wisely changed their offense to spread out the floor more properly and allowed Giannis to score super efficiently. His field goal percentage jumped from 52.9 to 57.8. His offensive dominance was reminiscent of some of the best big men the game has ever seen. That's a big reason why this season currently ranks 19th all-time in PER. He also finished 2nd for the Defensive Player of the Year award thanks to his amazing defensive versatility. He was the ultimate two-way player. Number 60, we have Nikola Jokic in 2022. His advanced numbers are amazing. He recorded the highest PER in box plus minus for a single season. He also recorded the 13th highest value over replacement player rating. But we don't need the numbers to prove how valuable he was to the Nuggets. They were without two of their best scorers. Jamal Murray missed the entire season, and Michael Porter Jr. missed all but 9 games. Despite being shorthanded, the Nuggets finished as the 6th seed in the West, and they had the 6th best offensive rating. Number 59, we have Hakeem Olajuwon in 1994. His biggest accomplishment is that he is only the 3rd player to win the MVP and the Defensive Player of the Year award in the same season. He was the most dominant scorer in the post and the best defender a team can have. In fact, he still has the 25th highest defensive win shares and the 26th highest blocks per game average. As far as everything he had to do for the Rockets, he led the team in points, rebounds, assists, and blocks. He was always an incredible two-way player, but he also became a leader of the highest order. That's what drove Houston to the 2nd best record in the league, despite no one else averaging over 15 points per game. Number 58, we have Bob McAdoo in 1975. Here's what he accomplished. He racked up the 8th most total points, the 15th highest points per game average, and the 32nd highest win shares. He is only one of 9 players to average over 34 points per game. He was putting up scoring numbers that the NBA hadn't seen since Wilt and Kareem, except he was scoring most of his shots from the outside. The degree of difficulty simply felt more impressive than what we saw from any other big man during the time. But what's even more impressive is that he outperformed players such as Kareem and Rick Barry, who were in their prime. Number 57, we have David Robinson in 1996. This was a season where he made a conscious effort to score less and allow his teammates to shine. That led to Sean Elliott averaging a career high of 20 points. Avery Johnson also ended up having the best year of his career. That resulted in the Spurs finishing with 59 wins. As far as Davis' production, this is only the 10th time that we've seen a player average at least 25 points, 12 rebounds, and 3 blocks in a season. His exceptional play on both ends of the floor led to another dominant year for San Antonio. Number 56, we have Jerry West in 1966. In the 60s, he always had the peace of mind of having the best wing player by his side. But due to injuries, Elgin Baylor was a shell of himself. He averaged a pedestrian 16.6 points per game on 40% shooting. But as all the greats do, Jerry increased his level of play. He recorded a career high in points, win shares, and PER. This is also only the 7th time that a player averaged over 31 points, 7 rebounds, and 6 assists. So without any all-star teammates for the year, the Lakers finished with the highest offensive rating and points per game average in the NBA. Number 55, we have Tracy McGrady in 2003. From an analytical standpoint, he produced the 2nd highest offensive box plus minus and the 22nd highest value over replacement player rating for a season. He also became only the 5th player to finish with a PER rating above 30 while posting a usage percentage of 35. The efficiency that he was playing with, despite having to do everything for such a talentless team, was remarkable. Number 54, we have LeBron James in 2008. Here are some interesting numbers from this season. For one, he was extremely clutch. He averaged a little over 9 points in the 4th quarter, which is the 3rd highest ever since the NBA started tracking it in the 1996-97 season. On top of that, he recorded the 15th highest value over replacement player rating for a single season. He also won the first and only scoring title of his career. Number 53, we have Dwayne Wade in 2009. Let's first start with his historical achievements. He produced the 17th highest value over replacement player rating while winning the scoring title. He is still the only player to record at least 2,000 points, 500 assists, 150 steals, and 100 blocks in a season. This is also only the 3rd time a player has averaged over 30 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 steals. Only Jordan in 1989 and James Harden in 2019 have been able to do the same. This is everything that he had to do in order for the Heat to finish with a winning record. Number 52, we have James Harden in 2019. The numbers tell us that this is the second greatest scoring season of the modern NBA, behind only Michael Jordan. He recorded the second highest points per game average since the NBA/ABA merger. He is currently one of 4 players to average over 36 points. He also had 9 games where he scored over 50 points. Only Wilt and Kobe have had more 50-point games in a season. Then we have what he accomplished in the month of January. He averaged 43.6 points, 8.7 rebounds, 7.6 assists, and 2.1 steals. For a full calendar month, only Wilt has averaged more points. Number 51, we have Tim Duncan in 2002. He has never been described as statistically dominant, but this season is the exception. He is only one of 6 players to average at least 25 points, 12 rebounds, and 2.5 blocks for a season. The other 5 players were Kareem, Shaq, Hakeem, David Robinson, and Bob McAdoo. He also posted the 35th highest win shares and the 46th highest defensive win shares ever. If that's not impressive enough, he carried the Spurs to the second best record with no one else averaging over 13 points. Number 50, we have Magic Johnson in 1989. His all-around excellence is what caught my eye the most. There is no other player that has posted over 20 points, 12 assists, and 5 rebounds for a season. He also recorded the 9th highest assists per game average. His superb all-around play is nothing new to us, but he was able to add a new element to his game. He decided to be an outside shooting threat, so he increased his 3-point percentage from 19.6 to 31.4. His improvement in his shot is reflected in his free throw percentage, as he led the league with a 91.1% average. Number 49, we have David Robinson in 1995. As it was always the case for the Admiral before Tim Duncan showed up, his numbers were staggering. He's an exclusive club of centers that have averaged over 27 points, 10 rebounds, and 3 blocks. Those players include Kareem, Shaq, Hakeem, Patrick Ewing, and Bob McAdoo. 5 of those 8 seasons ended with the player winning the MVP award. That's not an accident. David Robinson was truly dominant that season. He also recorded the 33rd highest value over replacement player rating and the 37th highest win shares. But the greatest stat, that the Spurs won 62 games. Number 48, we have Hakeem Olajuwon in 1993. I believe this is the greatest regular season campaign of his career. Here's why. He recorded his highest win shares, offensive win shares per 48 minutes, value over replacement player rating, box plus minus, offensive box plus minus, offensive rating, true shooting percentage, and PER. He also recorded the 9th most total blocks for a single season, while finishing 4th in the league in scoring. Nobody dominated the game on both ends as Hakeem did. Number 47, we have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1977. The Lakers were a one-man show. This was not a talented team whatsoever. In fact, they even missed the playoffs with Kareem playing all 82 games in the prior year. But he found a way to compensate for the team's lack of talent, and they increased their win total by 13 games without adding any key pieces. What's even more impressive is that they had the best record in the NBA. The bulk of the credit goes to Kareem. We still haven't seen anyone else average over 26 points, 13 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks for a season. Number 46, we have Chris Paul in 2008. In just his 3rd season, he became the second player to average over 21 points, 11 assists, and 2.5 steals. Isaiah Thomas is the only other player to reach those numbers. The most impressive part of his game that year was the enormous value he brought to the Hornets. They weren't even projected to make the playoffs in the ultra-competitive West, but they ended up with the 2nd seed. If that isn't enough for you, then I'll conclude with this one undeniable fact. He was competing with Kobe, LeBron, and Kevin Garnett for the MVP, yet he had a strong case of winning the MVP award over all of them. Number 45, we have Elgin Baylor in 1962. He's the only player on the list that played less than 55 games in the season, but he deserves to be the exception. He started on active duty in the Army and was asked to report for duty on January 2nd, 1962. For the first half of the season, he took advantage of the time given to average the most points by any player not named Wilt Chamberlain. By the time he needed to report for duty, the Lakers had the most wins out of any team. But instead of giving up on the season, he traveled from Fort Lewis, Washington to wherever the Lakers were playing during the weekends. For the 6 games that he played as the Weekend Warrior, the Lakers went 6-0, and he averaged nearly 39 points on 45% shooting and 22 rebounds. His special circumstances should allow him to be ranked among the best of the best. Number 44, we have Larry Bird in 1988. This was the finest offensive season of his career. He recorded the highest points per game average, field goal percentage, offensive win shares, offensive box plus minus, and PER of his career. As far as his per game stat line, only Oscar Robertson and Russell Westbrook have been able to average over 29 points, 9 rebounds, and 6 assists. That wasn't his only historical achievement. He recorded a 50-40-90 shooting splits. He currently has the second highest points per game average from any player with those shooting numbers. It's behind only Steph Curry's 2016 season. Number 43, we have LeBron James in 2018. This was another legendary all-around season from the King. This is only one of 8 times that a player's averaged over 27 points, 9 assists, and 8 rebounds. He had 18 triple-doubles, which is the most he's ever done for his career. This was what he needed to do in order for the shorthanded Cavaliers to be in contention for the 4th straight finals appearance. What he was doing in his 15th season seemed unnatural, but somehow he kept finding ways to improve. In actuality, this was all just a taste of what he was going to do during his legendary playoff run. Number 42, we have Kevin Durant in 2013. In the first season without James Harden, Durant led OKC to 60 wins. They even had the best offensive rating, net rating, and margin of victory in the league. The analytics say that the value he brought to the team was as good as we've ever seen. He recorded the 20th highest win shares and 30th highest value over replacement player rating for a single season. Aside from that, he joined the exclusive 50-40-90 club. He was able to produce the 3rd highest points per game average while recording those shooting numbers. Number 41, we have Elgin Baylor in 1963. During this time, Elgin was easily the most versatile and exciting scorer in the NBA. For example, there's one stretch during the month of December where he scored over 50 points in 3 consecutive games. 2 of those games came against Wilt Chamberlain and the San Francisco Warriors. Then there was a game against Bill Russell and the Celtics where he scored 50 points on nearly 60% shooting, and that was without Jerry West. It was clear that nobody could stop Baylor in his prime. That's why he's among 9 players to average over 34 points in a season. Number 40, we have Wilt Chamberlain in 1961. In his sophomore season, he recorded the highest rebounds per game average for a single season in league history. He also recorded the 3rd highest points per game average ever. This was a year where he pulled down 55 rebounds in a game against the Boston Celtics. He was only 5 rebounds away from out-rebounding the entire Boston team. In the scoring department, there were 8 games where he scored over 50 points. Number 39, we have James Harden in 2018. He was a leader for one of the most dominant teams ever. The Rockets are tied for the 5th most wins, and if it wasn't for all the injuries, they could have had an even more historic season. In Harden's case, he's only the 6th player to average over 30 points and 8 assists. Only Michael Jordan, Oscar Robertson, Damian Lillard, Tiny Archibald, and Luka Doncic have posted those numbers. He's also only one of 14 players to average over 30 points with a 60 true shooting percentage. Number 38, we have Giannis Antetokounmpo in 2020. He became the 3rd player to win the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year award in the same season. On top of that, he was the best player of one of the greatest regular season teams that will ever come across. Those are 3 achievements that very few players could reach in one year. The Bucks were crushing teams by over 10 points per game, which means that Giannis was sitting out many 4th quarters. He only averaged 30.4 minutes per game, yet he nearly became the 4th player to ever average over 30 points on 55% shooting. Number 37, we have Larry Bird in 1985. This is when Larry Legend decided to be more aggressive on the scoring end, and his game went to another stratosphere. He was scoring more, but he wasn't compromising his efficiency. In fact, his shooting average went up by 3%. This is where he started building the reputation of being the greatest shooter of all time prior to the Steph Curry era. He shot over 52% from the field and 42% from the three. As far as his per game numbers, this is only the 5th time that players average over 28 points, 10 rebounds, and 6 assists. Only Oscar Robertson and Russell Westbrook have done the same. Number 36, we have Magic Johnson in 1990. This is his most valuable season. He recorded the highest win shares, offensive win shares per 48 minutes, value over replacement player rating, offensive rating, box plus minus, and offensive box plus minus of his career. This shouldn't surprise us because he had to fill a huge void with Kareem no longer playing with the Lakers. Oftentimes, he was asked to play all 5 positions. That includes the center position. This proves that Magic is anything but one-dimensional. He not only led the Lakers to the best record, but their second best record for the Showtime era. Number 35, we have Oscar Robertson in 1962. There are only a handful of seasons that have been immortalized, that no matter how many years have passed, will always bring up what that player accomplished. This season is one of those examples. It has been famous for the fact that he averaged a triple-double. He had 41 total triple-doubles. To this day, only Russell Westbrook has been able to log over 40 triple-doubles. But there's another record that he broke. Up to that point, his 47.8 field goal percentage was the highest by any perimeter player. He wasn't just breaking down barriers on how to be a dominant all-around player, but also how to be an efficient volume scorer. Number 34, we have Kobe Bryant in 2006. He was a killer, he was relentless, and he played with a fury that we hardly see anymore. It's what allowed him to rack up the 7th most total points scored in a single season. It's what also allowed him to have some of the most legendary single game performances, like when he scored 62 points in 3 quarters while outscoring the Dallas Mavericks, or when he scored 81 points, the second highest scoring game in league history. This is what he needed to do in order to carry an extremely talentless team to 45 victories. That might be even more impressive than all the points he scored. Number 33, we have Michael Jordan in 1987. He scored the 3rd most points for a single season. He's the only player other than Wilt to score more than 3,000 points for a season. He posted the 6th highest points per game average ever. In fact, he has the highest points per game average since the merger. He also recorded the 7th highest value over replacement player rating. That gives us an idea of all that he had to do to carry a team that was short in talent to the playoffs. On top of all that, he had 2 historic scoring streaks. He scored 40 or more points in 9 straight games, and 50 or more points in 3 straight games. Number 32, we have Russell Westbrook in 2017. He pulled an Oscar Robertson. He became the first and only player to average a triple-double in the modern NBA. If that's not impressive enough, he also led the league in scoring by averaging 31.6 points. And on top of all of that, there are 6 different statistical categories where he finished in the top 5 for a single season. That includes offensive box plus minus, total points scored, value over replacement player rating, and PER. But the biggest one is that he had a total of 42 triple-doubles, which is the most ever. Number 31, we have Bill Russell in 1964. The most valuable and dominant defensive player in NBA history was at his apex. He earned 16 defensive win shares, which is a mark that still stands as the number 1 season of all time. For example, there were 3 times when the Celtics prevented the opposition from scoring over 80 points. That was extremely rare during a time when teams were averaging 117 possessions per game. And according to StatHead, this Celtics team did it 3 out of the 12 times during that decade. Russell certainly gets the bulk of that credit. Number 30, we have Larry Bird in 1986. After he won his 3rd MVP in a row, people were seriously questioning if this was the greatest player of all time. That's the impression that he left. The greatness of this season has a lot more to do than his numbers. It's the way he led the Celtics to a status that only a handful of teams can claim. For many people, the 1986 Boston Celtics are the greatest team to ever be assembled. Although they had a lot of great pieces, his imprint was all over this team. Number 29, we have Magic Johnson in 1987. Just like his rival, Magic was also the leader of one of the greatest teams ever. But he gets the edge because of how staggering his numbers are. This is the only time that a player's averaged over 23 points and 12 assists. When you combine that with his rebound average, you can say that this is one of the most impressive all-around seasons. With Johnson playing at his absolute best, the Lakers reached a level of dominance that we've only seen a handful of times. That includes posting the best offensive rating that stood for 32 years until the 2019 Warriors eventually surpassed them. Number 28, we have LeBron James in 2014. This ended up being the most efficient scoring season of his career. This is the highest field goal percentage and true shooting percentage that he's ever recorded. He was an offensive wrecking ball who showed no hesitation when it came to hitting long jumpers. All the teams were at his mercy when he had the ball. His greatness alone is what drove the Miami Heat to another 50-win season. This was a team that was plagued with injuries and players that were on their last leg. They were very much flawed, but LeBron did a tremendous job of carrying this team to the second best record in the East. Number 27, we have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1974. Look at those numbers and take everything in. What he was doing that season was not normal. Just to be nice, I decided to give everyone a chance by looking up how many players have averaged at least 25 points, 10 rebounds, 3 assists, and 2 blocks in a season. There have only been 2 players. It was Bob McAdoo in 1976 and David Robinson in 1994. That's the list right there. The Milwaukee Bucks had the best record and the second best offensive rating because of his all-around greatness. Keep in mind that he was the only all-star player on the team. Number 26, we have Michael Jordan in 1997. He did not win the MVP, even though he led the Bulls to 69 victories. He also led the league in scoring, win shares, offensive win shares per 48 minutes, value over replacement player rating, box plus minus, and offensive box plus minus. Yeah, Jordan was still the best player in the world by a mile. He refused to let his team get complacent, and he led them to another historically dominant season. That's even more impressive when you consider that Dennis Rodman, Tony Kukoc, and Luke Longley missed a combined 75 games. Number 25, we have LeBron James in 2012. The Miami Heat opted to give LeBron a positionless role, and they unleashed a new beast. He was the most dynamic all-around threat that we've ever seen. He played so many different roles throughout the course of the game, and he excelled in all of them. That includes on the defensive end. He was one of the rare players that was guarding all 5 positions. In fact, he finished with the highest defensive box plus minus and defensive win shares in the league. He could have very easily been on the short list of players who won the MVP and Defensive Player of the Year awards in the same year. Number 24, we have Kevin Garnett in 2004. The numbers clearly suggest that this is the greatest season that we've ever seen from a power forward. He posted the highest win shares, value over replacement player rating, and PER for a single season by any player from the power forward position. He's also only one of 4 players with a value over replacement player rating of 10 or higher. As far as his per game numbers, only Kareem was able to average at least 24 points, 13 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2 blocks. And he only did it once. All he needed was a little bit of help, and he soared to a level of play that we've rarely seen since. Number 23, we have Kevin Durant in 2014. Here's how impressive this season was. He was competing with LeBron James, who was at his apex, and he won the MVP award by a landslide. And this had nothing to do with voter fatigue. There was just no statistical case for LeBron. Durant led the league in 8 different statistical categories. From a historical standpoint, he has the 10th highest offensive win shares, the 16th highest value over replacement player rating, and the 18th highest win shares for a single season. This is only the 6th time that that a player averaged over 32 points, 7 rebounds, and 5 assists. And on top of that, he had a 63.5% true shooting percentage. This was no controversy. Kevin Durant was the real MVP. Number 22, we have Michael Jordan in 1993. He led the league in points and steals. He's the only player in league history to record over 32 points, 6 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2.5 steals per game. He produced the 9th highest value over replacement player rating for a single season. The rest of his teammates were battling with fatigue, and everyone's numbers went down. The exception was Michael Jordan, who increased his production to keep this team afloat. The narrative said this team had fallen off, yet they had the 3rd best record in the league. Number 21, we have David Robinson in 1994. His advanced metrics are nothing short of legendary. We're talking the same company as only Michael Jordan and LeBron James in the modern era. They are the only 3 players to earn 20 win shares or higher and a 10 value over replacement player rating for a season. As far as his per game stat line, there's only been one other player that has averaged over 25 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 blocks in a season. That player is Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. The numbers do not lie. Only the 3 greatest players that have ever lived can match what David Robinson did at their peak. As far as single game performances, he posted a quadruple double in a 71-point game. So I guess you could say that he was also posting Wilt Chamberlain numbers. Number 20, we have Oscar Robertson in 1964. Here's how impressive this season was. He was the only perimeter player to win the MVP in the 60s and 70s. This was an award that was exclusively for centers, but the Big O was the exception. Here's why. The Royals had the most wins by any non-Celtics team up to that point. They led the league in points, field goal percentage, assist, and offensive rating. You can bet that Oscar was the reason for that. In fact, he currently has the 4th highest offensive win shares and the 10th highest win shares ever. He was only 7 rebounds away from averaging another triple-double. Number 19, we have Michael Jordan in 1989. This was a season where Jordan proved that he was more than just a volume scorer. He gave us arguably the greatest all-around season in NBA history. Let's not forget that when we say all-around, we don't just mean scoring, rebounds, and assists. It should mean both ends of the floor. With that in mind, the numbers that Jordan recorded were truly one of a kind. We have never seen a player average over 32 points, 8 rebounds, 8 assists, and 2 steals. If you take away the steals, he was the only player to average 32, 8, and 8 for 34 years until Luka Doncic did it in 2023. He was playing like a modern-day scoring point guard, which makes him way ahead of his time. Number 18, we have Wilt Chamberlain in 1968. This was a season where Wilt decided to prove to the world that he was more than just a scorer. He dished out a total of 702 assists, which is the most by any center ever. It was in fact the most by any player that season. But he could still score big numbers whenever he wanted to. There were 2 games where he scored over 50 points while shooting north of 80%. This was also the season where he posted over 20 points, 20 rebounds, and 20 assists in a game. Then on the defensive end, he finished with the highest defensive win shares by any player ever, not named Bill Russell. Number 17, we have LeBron James in 2010. It was the combination of his power, agility, and speed that made him the most gifted athlete ever. But when you mix all of that with his skill set and shot making abilities, he made that Cavaliers team a juggernaut. There is no other way to describe them. In fact, they became the only team since the Chicago Bulls in the 90s to post over 60 wins in consecutive seasons. That's what LeBron accomplished with a team full of role players. It's no wonder that he posted the 8th highest value over replacement player rating ever. This also became only the 10th time that a player posted over 29 points, 8 assists, and 7 rebounds for a season. Number 16, we have Wilt Chamberlain in 1966. This was the first time that Wilt was a part of a 50-win season, and it was the first time his team finished with the best record in the league. He finally had a team that could contend for a title, and he excelled with so many great pieces around him. He adjusted his game, and he became the most lethal all-around big man that we've ever seen. Imagine seeing a player average over 30 points, 20 rebounds, and 5 assists. That played a big part in the Sixers improving by 15 games from the previous year. Number 15, we have Michael Jordan in 1992. This was a season where Jordan proved that he could be the driving force of a truly dominant team while being a dominant scorer. We've already discussed how rare it is for a team to post over 67 wins, but they are also one of 12 teams to post a margin of victory of over 10 points. Prior to that year, only Kareem was able to lead a team to over 65 wins while averaging over 30 points. But he was more than just a scorer. This is only the 4th time that we've seen a player average over 30 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, and 2 steals. James Harden is the only other player to accomplish this. Number 14, we have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1973. He was dominant and extremely efficient. Only Elgin Baylor and Wilt Chamberlain have been able to average over 30 points, 15 rebounds, and 5 assists for a season. This is also only the 8th time that a player shot over 55% from the field while averaging over 30 points. Then we have the type of season the Milwaukee Bucks had. They won 60 games, they had the most efficient offense, and they had a margin of victory of 8.2 points. What makes it even more impressive is that they were rarely at full strength. By all accounts, this was a legendary season. However, he lost the MVP to Dave Cowens, who was a much inferior player. Number 13, we have Michael Jordan in 1990. This was the beginning of the Phil Jackson era of the Chicago Bulls. He took over as head coach, and the Bulls improved to 55 wins. He was about to play a huge part in the Bulls dynasty, but this team was still heavily reliant on Jordan. But that wasn't much of a problem, since he was close to reaching his apex. His offensive brilliance is what allowed him to produce a stat line that we've only seen 3 times in history. Only he and James Harden have been able to average over 33 points, 6 rebounds, and 6 assists for a season. He also produced the 6th highest value over replacement player rating and the 8th highest offensive box plus minus. Number 12, we have Shaquille O'Neal in 2000. This might be the most unstoppable basketball force ever. There was absolutely no way to stop this player unless you threw 2 people at him to send him to the free throw line. If not, he would dunk on your big man even with his arms wrapped around his body. But the biggest improvement in his game was his renewed focus on the defensive end. He finished 1st in defensive win shares, 2nd in defensive rating, and 3rd in blocks. He was a primary reason why the Lakers finished 1st in defensive rating and opponent's field goal percentage. He could have easily added Defensive Player of the Year award to his near unanimous MVP selection. Number 11, we have Wilt Chamberlain in 1967. From a statistical standpoint, there was nothing left for him to prove. All he needed to prove was that he could lead a team to the title. So he proceeded to lead the Sixers to 68 wins, which was the most by any team during that time. That currently ranks as the 4th most wins in history. That was all thanks to Wilt's dominance. He currently has the highest field goal percentage by any player that has averaged over 20 points. His 7.8 assists per game average is the 5th highest mark by any center. He also recorded 22 triple-doubles, which is the 10th most ever. For one glorious season, Wilt had as perfect of a season as you can get. Number 10, we have LeBron James in 2009. I believe that no one has ever done a better job at carrying a weak supporting cast in the regular season. They posted 66 wins without any all-star caliber players. The Cavs even went 39-2 on their home floor, which is the best mark ever, behind only the 1986 Boston Celtics. They were reaching Pantheon level stuff, and it's all thanks to LeBron. He's the only player, along with Michael Jordan, to post a 20 win shares and 11 value over replacement player rating. He also led the team in points, rebounds, assists, steals, and blocks. On top of that, he was the main reason why the Cavaliers were arguably the best defensive team in the NBA. Number 9, we have Michael Jordan in 1988. He became the first and only player to ever win the MVP, Defensive Player of the Year award, and scoring title in one season. And just for good measure, he also led the league in steals. On top of that, he posted the highest value over replacement player rating in league history, and the highest win shares by any player since the merger. Oh wait, I almost forgot. He's also one of 4 players to post over 200 steals and 100 blocks, and he has the highest field goal percentage by any player who averaged over 35 points. He accomplished this while players such as Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, Isaiah Thomas, and Charles Barkley were all in their prime. But Jordan was easily the best player in the world. Number 8, we have Wilt Chamberlain in 1964. Some of his notable achievements is that he recorded the second highest win shares and 5th most total points scored in a season. But nothing was more impressive than carrying a team that Sports Illustrated called the slowest players and worst shooters ever to play in the NBA to the 3rd best record in the league. This was an abomination of a team, and Wilt carried them to greatness. He did this by trusting his teammates more and dominating on the defensive end. It's no accident that he finished with the 2nd highest defensive win shares of his career. This same team that missed the playoffs the prior year reached the finals, and it was all because of one player. I believe this is the most underrated season in the history of the league. Number 7, we have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1971. His biggest accomplishment is that he led the Milwaukee Bucks to the most dominant season in NBA history. They currently have the highest simple rating system and the 2nd highest margin of victory for a single season. A big reason for their success was that Kareem was the anchor of their number 1 rated defense, that he was the most efficient scorer ever. He recorded the highest field goal percentage by any player who was averaged over 30 points. He demanded a double team every time he touched the ball, but he had no problems kicking the ball out to his teammates. He displayed so much maturity for a player who was in his 2nd year. Number 6, we have Steph Curry in 2016. He not only won the scoring title and the MVP, but he was also the best player on the greatest regular season team. On top of that, he had the greatest shooting season in the history of the sport. He made the most 3-pointers with 402. What's even more insane is that he shot a career high 45.4%. That's the highest percentage by any player that has attempted at least 7 threes per game. He also has the highest true shooting percentage by any player that has averaged over 30 points. He was a volume 3-point shooter, and yet he still had a 50-40-90 shooting splits. He put up those numbers while making shots like these. What he was doing was insane, and I wouldn't knock anyone for having this number 1. Number 5, we have Michael Jordan in 1996. Here's the next player who posted dominant numbers while leading his team to over 70 wins. He accomplished this by completely controlling the game with his incredibly high basketball IQ, and that's on both ends of the floor. On offense, he took his time and took advantage of the mismatches he was able to create. In fact, this is the only season from 1994 to 2000 where a player averaged over 30 points. It was not easy to be an efficient volume scorer during this time, but MJ made it work. On the other side of the court, he was the leader of their legendary defensive attack. In fact, he has the 7th highest defensive win shares by any guard since the merger. It is no accident that he led this team to basketball immortality. Number 4, we have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in 1972. This is the season where he posted the highest win shares, offensive win shares, and win shares per 48 minutes for a single season. This is an incredible achievement that proves how unstoppable he was in his prime. His per game numbers are also just as impressive. He's the only player to average over 55% while scoring at least 34 points per game. He was asked to do more with Oscar Robertson missing 18 games, but the Bucks still found a way to win 63 games and post an 11.16 margin of victory. That's the 5th highest mark ever. The reason for their dominance was that Kareem had arguably the greatest season by a center. Number 3, we have Wilt Chamberlain in 1962. Let me put this disclaimer out there. It should be common knowledge at this point that Wilt's numbers are a bit tainted. There were much more possessions than they are now, and there were hardly any teams that had a player physically capable of stopping him. But on the other end, they played the same 48 minutes as they do now. Instead of trusting in sports science, he averaged 48.5 minutes per game and produced the greatest statistical season of all time. Just a few of his notable records include recording over 4,000 points. He had 45 total games where he scored over 50 points, which of course includes his 100-point game that came against the Knicks. This was a record-breaking season in every sense of the word. However, my reasoning for not placing him number 1 is strictly out of principle. Do you understand the level of ball hogging that comes with averaging 39.5 shots per game, but only 2.4 assists per game? Have you ever seen the roster of the New York Knicks, the team that the Warriors played 12 times? I'll just say that there is a reason why he averaged a combined 65.4 points against them that year. I just don't think that the greatest season of all time should come under those circumstances. But I wouldn't blame anyone for making this number 1. Number 2, we have LeBron James in 2013. He was the most lethal weapon a team can hope to have. He was the greatest physical specimen who evolved into the most efficient basketball player. What makes that even more impressive is everything he was asked to do for his team. He ran the team's offense. He shot over 40% from the 3. He was their best post-up player. He was unstoppable on the open court, and he defended the other team's best score. It's no wonder that this team ended up winning 27 games straight. From an analytical standpoint, he recorded the 5th highest win shares per 48 minutes, the 10th highest PER, and the 11th highest value over replacement player rating. It was as flawless of a season that we'll ever come across. Number 1, we have Michael Jordan in 1991. The greatest basketball player of all time, in my opinion, was at the peak of his superb athleticism. He was 27 years old, and the things he would do on the court were outstanding. But he was able to mix that incredible talent with his newfound knowledge of how to win games. With no other teammate being selected as an all-star, he led the Bulls to over 60 wins. They also had the best offensive rating, margin of victory, and simple rating system in the league. They are currently in the top 20 all-time for those last 2 categories. From an individual standpoint, this is only the 3rd time that a player reached a 20-point win shares and a value over replacement player rating of over 10. This is also only the 2nd time that a player averaged over 30 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 2.5 steals. Rick Barry also accomplished this in 1975. This was the start of the greatest run from a modern player/team, and they would have never gone there if Jordan hadn't given the greatest MVP season ever. That concludes today's video. Thank you for watching the entire countdown. Do you agree with this list, or who would you have at the number 1 spot? I would love to hear everyone's opinion in the comments. Thanks for watching.